Alright, I'm going to share a setup that I'm experimenting with for the race at the Adrenalina Marathon coming up on November 20th. And I started the video by saying thank you for everyone who congratulated me on my 58th birthday.
58?
I think it was a little long-winded, so I think I might just edit that whole clip out. But the purpose of this video is to just show you some 107 flywheels that I've had on my shelf for probably 6 months. And I've considered making brackets, and I've looked at a lot of different designs. And for those of you that are considering big wheels, I thought I'd start with the biggest wheels that I'm aware of that are functioning is the 107 millimeter Abec 11 flywheels. I don't know if this video really does it justice, but these wheels are huge. I know the shadow is in there. Let me flip the board so you can have a better perspective. Alright, I've just flipped the boards and you see the 107 millimeter Abec 11 flywheels attached to a Land Yacht Switch 40. Next to it, I have some 70 millimeter. They're Dregs wheels. A little bit of old school there, but still 70 millimeters. Love you, mother. And the size comparison is insane. Now I've just shot an image with the board on the left, which would be the Dregs Love Your Mother, and then with the Abec 11 170 millimeter flywheels. And then if I come down and zoom a little bit, next to it is some Sector 9 wheels, and then I have some Bustin 77s. I have the Seismic Speed Vents 85, and then on the far right I have the Abec 11 90 millimeter flywheels. And I'm making this video as really I rode the Abec 11 107s yesterday, and they were insane. I mean, literally insane. I've never been on a wheel that just kept on picking up so much speed. And I did a light push up the street, and the resistance and the weight of it didn't seem to be very restrictive at all. And I told my girlfriend, you know, I want to make a video about these wheels and what they fit on, and share just some things I've learned this year, because I feel it's almost an unfair advantage if you can figure out how to mount them, how to roll with them. Because yesterday when I was going down the street, and the way I had to set up the board in order to mount them, and I did a lot of research on the board I chose, is it takes 2 lanes of the street to actually carve around, and at speed it's not going to even happen. So it's kind of like being on a sled, a bobsled down the mountain, and you just got to go for the run. But on a specific course, they're gonna work awesome. But the problem I had yesterday, being that it was one of those days, not very normal in San Diego, but it was 101 degrees, and as I tried to slow the wheels down to carve, I could feel them sliding. Now mind you, they're not broke in, so I do definitely want to break these wheels in. But I want to show you how I set it up, on the board I set it up, and what you might want to consider if you want to run these. Alright, the best board that I found that I thought they would work on, and I was pleasantly surprised, was a Land Yachts Switch 40. The deck is 9.5 inches wide by wheelbase measured from the inside truck mounts is 32 inches. Now mind you, I had to, with regular trucks, I mean regular, I mean like Paris or you know, you go ahead, go down the list. Gull Wing, Charger 2, Bears, Grizzlies, etc., etc. Whether they're, you know, Arsenals or Rogue. I mean, I can go down the list. But Bear came out with a really cool truck that I had some fun experimenting with this year, and it was the Polar Bears. And they're like, I think center of the hanger on the bottom is like easily a ½ inch lower than the than Bear Grizzlies. And so that's what I went with. It's more a TKP truck, traditional kingpin, rather than a reverse kingpin. And the height, was my main concern. I'm not really the biggest fan of them for downhill and freeride, but for LDP, and this is just from my own personal experience, so if it works for you, you know, that's grand. But I really like how low these trucks were, and I changed the kingpin in them so that I could run a regular bushing in the roadside, along with the standard bushing board side. Even stock, without changing the kingpin, they come with a like a regular longboard bushing board side, and then a street cone roadside. But then with a easy mod, I mean, the kingpin knocks out really easy, and you can put a longer kingpin in, and then you can, I don't know if you can really see that, but there's 2 longboard bushings in there. And the thing that really works for me, and has been, is the exceptional performance of our Riptide bushings, Riptide Sports. Now what really makes these trucks work on this setup, because I didn't want wheel bite from the wide width of the wheels, is a 95.5 WFB Chubby on the bottom, which still gives me some lean given the fact that it is a Chubby. Then the maroon one is again a Riptide bushing that is a barrel, and I was able to use a barrel because I changed the kingpin. Alright, I could tell I got a little foggy, but let's back up a little bit. And that's a 93 crank. That's the special bushing from Riptide that you can actually turn the bolt down and it changes clockwise, the duro,
which changes the duro.
Well, you might be asking why I picked the Switch 40. And probably the biggest aspect of the deck is the fact that it has a really nice fat drop. It's a drop down deck.
A few more features of the deck is the fact that the nose and tail are flat. I've bought numerous decks that had a pitch in the nose and tail, which affects the trucks I'm using. And in order to run the big wheels, it was kind of important. It was very important for clearance to run the 107s. And then another fact worth mentioning, with a lot of my research, I found that they have also added 2 layers of fiberglass inside with the 9 plies of Canadian hard rock maple.
Alright, I've laid out all the decks, and my videos tend to take a little longer than I anticipate, especially when I don't have a cameraman. But I'm laying out all the decks, and I'm gonna drop down, and you can see that with the I don't want to throw out the wrong spec, but I'm just guessing. I mean, from every shop I've visited, and I've visited a few, that the land yachts had a nice drop, probably as big a drop as you would normally find in a store.
Alright, according to land yachts, it's a 1.8 inch drop, and that's a tech spec.
I've compared it to numerous boards that I've been riding, including one that I raced last year. So, compared to the lowest deck that I rode, which is a double drop with about an inch drop, with Abec 90 wheels, flywheels I think they are, And even though it's a double drop, meaning the deck drops an inch, the trucks go through the top at the tongue, and then I've also raised the trucks, it's really probably only about a quarter of an inch. I'm a little bit on a slope on a driveway, so the perspective might not be spot on. But basically, the 107 flywheels on the land yachts, clearly the deck isn't much higher than a quarter inch. Now, you might be wondering, well, why didn't you just race that other board besides, and then put on the bigger wheels? And I'll tell you the big factor on the land yachts that appealed to me, why I wanted this deck, and I got it for my birthday yesterday. I'm just grateful for my girlfriend. I'll show you why here. All right, on a marathon, when you're kicking 26.2 miles and you're pushing it, and I mean, I'm not comparing it to an ultra skate, but if you're an everyday skater like myself, 26.2 miles, 6 laps around Fiesta Island is a haul, especially because I don't want to end up in the back. Now, what I've seen as something dangerous in LDP and distance skating is that when you bring your foot onto the deck and you're tired, sometimes you'll overshoot the landing. Now, with the aggressive drop on the land yachts, what's nice is even when I'm tired and I throw my foot on and I overshoot, I'm not tagging the wheel. Now I'm going to show you some of the decks through my journey on longboards that I've modified, and I've had to cut into this transition wall in order to fit the wheels. Now let me just show you a different deck. Alright, I'm showing you one of my decks that I've modified, and I've had to cut into the transition. Now mind you, I use this board for more than just going around Fiesta Island. It's a little bit more multi-purpose to be able to you know, carve on streets closer to, like, I need a lane to pull a flip around, as opposed to the land yachts with the big wheels. It's more a solid race setup. There, I think you can get the picture of that. I can zoom in on that. So the problem being is when you overshoot, when you re-enter the board, say you're kicking from the middle of the board, you can tag the wheel. Now, when I was paying attention to the ultra skate down in Miami, that was one of the worst things I saw, is that when people fatigue, they step on the wheel. And a few people, well, at least one that I saw, got bloodied up pretty good on that. Okay, so now we're looking at 4 decks. The double drop with the trucks raised that I just spoke about, you could overshoot the transition on the drop and then have your foot step on the wheel. Now, to overcome that, my best suggestion, if this is your first marathon, is to get a drop
Through deck, which you see in 3 of the decks here, and the 4th deck is a double drop with the trucks raised.
Make sure your wheel size doesn't exceed the height of the top of the deck. So I'm gonna walk over. I've got 2 Sector 9 decks, a Meridian, and then the other one is some big old pirate ship. But the benefit of this is our club deck that we have right here for sometimes friends of members, or members want a specific board for a different discipline. We make this one available. We purchased a lot of these boards, but what I want to show you, and the height of the Sector 9 decks drop through. One has got some old gunmetal trucks on it, the other one's got some caliber 2s, and then I have some Rogues on the club deck. The one that we sometimes well, we loan out our boards to members if they want to try something new, or they're thinking about making a purchase, whether they want to buy our club deck or not. But the trucks are raised as well. And the height of all 3 decks is generally within a quarter inch or so. But the benefit is There's 77 millimeter wheels on this club deck, and it's pretty much at the boundary, but still I can overshoot the top of the platform and without severely tagging the wheel. So that's the benefit of having a drop through deck when the deck is higher than the wheels. Anytime you start putting on big wheels on a drop through deck, you have the chance of tagging the wheel. Now getting back to the land yachts, the sun's in the right position, so I just want to go over the specs again and mention just a few variables. One is that it has a nice serious drop. It's a 9-ply Canadian hard rock maple deck. I was able to set it up with Riptide Sports bushings to keep it from the wheel bite. And the compromise is that I needed 2 lanes to turn around rather than 1, like with some of the other setups I work with. I've used the Polar Bear trucks. They're 180 millimeters. And there's really not a riser pad, just a very thin one on there. I use stainless steel bolts just for show, and I use some nice washers on top because I don't like the deck to get damaged. These are the Electric Flywheel, 107 millimeters. I'm really looking forward to riding this board because just on a few tests that I did yesterday when it was 100 degrees, it just flew down the road. Now I'm going to do some time trials around Fiesta Island to compare it with some of my other setups. But I'm really loving the safety of this board. When you re-enter the board when you're tired, your foot, because of the transition, it skips hitting the wheel. For bearings right now, I don't even know if it's going to make a difference. I was thinking I was going to have to get some ceramic bearings, and if the pocketbook affords it, I'm down with it. But I want to mention that as the board sits with the wheels, it literally just flies down the road. I want to get used to it. I want to learn. I want to know how these wheels grip after they actually break in, because like I mentioned earlier in the clip, when I was going down the street and I have a road that I can turn out on, and I was trying to brake speed a little bit by carving, it started to drift, and I wasn't ready for it, but it's insane. I saw one of the companies that was at the marathon last year, I think it was Maharaja. The owner of that company was using these, so it was always kind of like planted a seed, like, wow, I wonder what 107 millimeter electric flywheel Abec 11 wheels do. And I am absolutely impressed, but my biggest problem was finding a deck that I felt would complement them, especially since I'm over tagging the wheel after some fatigue sets in. And this is really the setup. Oh, and I think I've passed the whole part of what I was trying to say is I don't think any bearings is going to make much of a difference, but obviously you like to want to get every advantage you can on your competition. But I was laughing pretty hard yesterday when I first rode this, because I told my girlfriend I have to make a video clip of this board, because when I go, well, I'm trying to be humble here, but if I go smoking by you at the marathon, don't say I didn't warn you. And it's because this board hauls, like literally hauls. And there's some mild transitions around the Fiesta Island, and I'm going to be holding on for dear life. Alright, and finishing up this video, I do want to mention that I'm not getting paid by any company. This is just information for the club, information to my friends on Facebook and on my YouTube channel. Jesus Rules Ministry is the sponsor of the club and organizer. We are a non-religious club. And I just make that little disclaimer because as a ministry, our #1 goal is just getting people together to have a good time and have fun and roll. It's just that my faith in the Lord is something that I want to share for those that do desire to talk to me about it. Alright then, I think I'm out of here. I've given you some info. I hope to see you at the Adrenalina Marathon, November 20th, 2016. Until then, laters. Well, I think that kind of sums it up. I hope some of that information was valuable to you, and I look forward to seeing everyone's sled at that can make it out to the Adrenalina Marathon, November 20th, 2016. These are not the only options for a setup. I know G-Bomb, they make some pretty awesome brackets, but unfortunately, and this is just one person's opinion, but for me, I like the safety factor. It's probably because I'm an old guy too. I'm tired of hitting the ground, so if I can eliminate that factor, and with the G-Bomb setup, you have you know, the openness of the truck bracket with the wheels, and so that wasn't something viable for myself. And I'm trying to show you that you can set up a drop deck with some ginormous wheels, and they definitely are ginormous, and there is a speed factor that is unparalleled. I'm really looking forward to training on this board and probably tweaking it. If I want to get some more turn out of the board, I'll have to do some modifying on the, both the tongue and tail on this, but then I'll have to restructure this in order to make up for what I'm carving out, because I don't want to lose stability. I will mention too that I'm a big fan of boards that don't flex, but I found that it has some give in it, and I'm getting used to it, but it's not really too bad. If I had my cameraman, I'd jump on it. Maybe I can finish up this video with showing you. It has some pretty, I'm almost like 185, 190 pounds, and you could see, I don't know if the camera's gonna pull that in, but it has a nice flex and bounce to it. Whoops, I got boards rolling all over the place. All right then, it's Michael, SD Skateboard, Longboard Race Club down here in San Diego, trying to just throw out a few words about the setup that I'm happy to be checking out and rolling on. All right then, laters. After watching the video, I have a little bit of bonus information. A couple things I wish I would have spoke of, but at this point, if you've made it this far, I hope it benefits you. The whole deal with the land yachts is that I'm still close to the ground, and with the 107mm electric flywheels, a lot of the decks I was trying to make it work with put me up too high. But here's an important thing to note. There is a compromise, and because the board doesn't turn well, I need it not to be, I can't have it really any lower, because when I'm turning either toe side or heel side, I don't want my toes and heels to drag. So that's something really to consider is, you know, get your deck down low, but you still got to be able to turn it. And if you're advanced, you're gonna throw your heels out or your toes out. So just keep that in mind when you're setting up your board. I hope that helps you, and thanks for visiting the page.